we are sitting down with the SRC president, Thembalethu Nyikilana, who is a third-year public management student from Motherwell in Port Elizabeth. So in sitting down with the Mr. President, we are observing social distance. We, in fact, both wearing our masks, and we're going to sit down and have a very brief conversation centering around Youth Day and what does it mean in particular. So, Nyikilana, Mr. President, thank you very much for taking time out to sit down and have this conversation with us amidst all the plans that you and the rest of the SRC and the student body are doing to get the campus ready, to get the campus prepared for the imminent return of students. At a very broad level, I'd like to ask you, what does Youth Day mean to you?
Thanks again. Thanks for the invite. What does Youth Day mean to me? Youth Day to me means a day that we get to celebrate and remember a very fearless and courageous generation of 1976. And I think more than anything else, to learn from the selflessness that they took upon themselves to gather as one and stand tall against not only the social ills of the time, but the systematic oppression that has been there at the time overall, as well as the ability that they had of standing up against an oppressive government, but also against an oppressive education system. And I think beyond us going through our democratic breakthrough as a country, the one important aspect about their uprising is that it gave us a responsibility to continue that fight. That as much as we have an academic breakthrough, a democratic breakthrough, but we have the responsibility of continuing from their conviction as far as the education that we receive as students. So I think that's what Youth Day means to me, pretty much.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing what was a very, very insightful opening in terms of what Youth Day means to you. I think with this June 16 and where we find ourselves in society today, in terms of what is happening, in terms of a response for Black Lives Matter that's happening not only in the US, but in all parts of the world. And then also particularly where we find ourselves around the pandemic of COVID-19. With that possibly as a backdrop, what message do you have for youth, and in particular youth at Nelson Mandela University?
My message to young people in general and to students of Nelson Mandela University is everything has changed, but nothing has changed. This time around, we are faced with systematic changes such as online learning that have been accelerated predominantly by an invisible enemy in the name of COVID-19. But these systematic changes have always been part of the fast developing systematic way that we've been doing things. So in that line, I'd want to repeat and say that everything's changed, but nothing has changed. In the sense that today we can't gather in numbers to address some of the systematic problems that we have with the system. But we share the same conviction and the same courage to take on the system where necessary. And I think being a young person in general, one of our responsibilities that we have today is that whilst we might all be passionate about advancing the relevant struggles that we face in our time, we have a far greater responsibility of being pragmatic in our approach, being informed through reading, engaging, and exposing our ideas to relevant criticism as well as solutions. This allows us to inspire confidence to one another, but most importantly, this allows us to inspire confidence to those who trust within us. And I think one of the most fundamental quotes that I'd like to remember, particularly the time that we're in now, and also the Youth Month in general, is a quote from Nelson Mandela, and I'd like to read it. And it reads as follows: "Let me say this, and say this with the utmost conviction, The nation owes you a clear policy and practical measures to ensure that the youth contributes and benefits from our new democracy, close quote. And I think today we share that particular responsibility as students as well as young people in general. That even though we're locked up in our houses and in our rooms because of COVID-19, the one responsibility that we still have is to think under those conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That was extremely meaningful. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to wish you and the SRC and all Nelson Mandela University students a happy Youth Day, and one that is deeply reflective, where they're able to come up with ideas and solutions that are youth first and youth friendly. Thank you very much.